All right, so welcome back. I'm a complete noob when it comes to Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, all that. I have no idea. So I'm sitting here with my friend Matt, and we're going to go over a couple things. We were just having a conversation walking back from the gym. So we're going to be talking about what is Bitcoin, the history behind Bitcoin, is it too late to invest in Bitcoin, and how much should I invest as a beginner into Bitcoin? So I'll let you take the stage.
Yeah, for sure. So it was interesting because we were just talking, we were walking, and I was like, oh, Bitcoin's pumping a little bit today. And you're like, yeah, I put $50 in, and it went up to 59 a couple years ago, and I cashed out. And I'm like, well, do you even know what Bitcoin is or how it works? And you're like, no. I'm like, all right, we need to have a discussion about it. So I fell into the curious factor of the same thing, what was it, in 2020, 2021, where we'll go into why that was, later about the halvings and things like that with Bitcoin. But everybody kind of gets intrigued by something that's going up in value because you're like, oh, this is interesting. And for me, I was like, all right, I need to understand how this works. So I did a deep dive on how Bitcoin works, the history of it, what is valuable, why are things valuable, and, basically the reputation of Bitcoin in general, and is it something that I should invest in for the long term or short term? Is it like a gamble? Things like that. So we first have to go back to the history of Bitcoin, and it's been in effect, it was created a little over 10 years ago, and pretty much what happened was a guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, that is a pseudonym for somebody. Nobody actually knows who the creator of Bitcoin is, which also actually gives it a little bit of value in and of itself, right? Because if nobody owns it technically, then it can't be corrupted. So that's kind of part of the allure to it. But basically, you have to, before we understand what Bitcoin is, you have to understand what an exchange of value is, right? So for the whole experience that we've been in for human, existence, we've always exchanged things, and being able to keep track of the ledger of, say, if I give you a banana and you gave me an apple, and the apple was worth more than the banana, and you said, hey, I'll give you 2 apples in 2 weeks when they come back. No, we've always been trying to figure out how to keep track of that, right? And it's like an accounting, right? How do I keep track of, if I said this dollar was worth $1 here, and then I gave it to you, and now that dollar, in history now, is we don't even know where the dollars are. It's just it's very difficult to keep an accounting. So when they created Bitcoin, it was basically a cryptocurrency. So on a ledger, which is just a balance sheet, every time there was a Bitcoin exchange, it showed up on the ledger. So, and it was anonymous. It was just, these different transactions. So if a transaction of I sent this Bitcoin to this person, it shows exactly how much Bitcoin was sent to this person, to this address, right? And it keeps track of all of the transactions anonymously. So the ledger in and of itself is flawless. There's never been any issues with it. So you can completely keep track of a currency that we all can exchange, right? That's the understanding of how Bitcoin works, but why is it valuable, and how is it created? So the reason why it's valuable is when it was initially created, there was a max Bitcoin of 21 million. So there's 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be in existence. Have you ever heard that?
No.
Okay. So there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin. At the beginning, they were giving Bitcoin out to secure the network, meaning if you confirmed the transactions that occurred, so if I sent you $1 and somebody else on the network confirmed that that dollar went to you, right, and you are part of the blockchain, right? They're called miners, right? So a miner is, I'm watching to make sure that all of the transactions are occurring correctly, and we all pool together to say these transactions, were correct. And over time, they were rewarding the miners with Bitcoin. So to protect the network, I would, the system, it's not a person. So the cryptography, it was the guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, who created this cryptography. it is already set. Like no matter what occurs, the Bitcoin are being released accordingly to these blocks. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. We were just talking. I haven't done deep dive research on this in a while, but like every time there is a block that's created with X amount of transactions on it, somebody that was in that mining pool of confirming those transactions, during that time, you could be selected to be rewarded, right? So not everybody gets rewarded. So you could still be a miner, but not be rewarded during that block. And each block, every 4 years, is reduced, meaning the reward that you get for being a miner is being reduced. So at the beginning, they were giving, I can't remember, I think it was like 10,000 Bitcoin out every so often, 4 minutes or something. I think a block is created now, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like every 4 minutes. So every 4 minutes, there was a reward for protecting the network. So people were getting these Bitcoin, which at this point, over 10 years ago, they were not worth anything. So I'm just like, I'm basically playing part of this game, just like seeing how it works. Every 4 years, the rewards halved. Okay, meaning that if you were getting a $10,000 reward, the next year it was $5,000, so on and so forth. So now I wish I would have done some research. I can't remember exactly, but like right now, the last time the Bitcoin went up back in 2020, it was during a halving stage, meaning the Bitcoin went from, I believe, I might have to look this up. It went from, I think, 6 Bitcoin that was being rewarded to a miner to 3. And the new halving cycle is in 2024. So that's why it's kind of coming back up, because the reward for doing the task is being cut in half, meaning the supply is being reduced. And if I value something and it's been, validated by the world to say this is a valuable thing, it's a scarce resource. So the reason why and this goes into like why the value has increased, it comes from confidence and believing that, okay, this thing is now valuable, on top of there's a limited supply. So they have a cap of 21 million Bitcoin. And because it took a long time to actually make it, get to a certain amount, but like there's only, over the next, I can't remember now, 10, 15, 20 years or so, there's only 2 million Bitcoin left right? The process is very top heavy. So like at the beginning, because it cuts the reward in half. So in 20, 30 years, the reward to even protect the Bitcoin is going to be, it's going to be like 0.001 Bitcoin. But if the value of the Bitcoin is so much more, that 0.001 Bitcoin is worth more than even at the beginning when you were doing it for nothing and the Bitcoin was worth nothing, right? So that's like kind of the history of how it works. But like, why do people actually find it to be valuable? I think that's an important question. And it really comes down to like confidence and belief of something. It's just a belief. And when people were, it was kind of like in 2020, it was a kind of a number of things that kind of made it work and make it make sense. And a lot of people are a lot smarter than me that were basically saying, hey, all of the things that I want that are assets have gone up extremely high in price, right? So the inflation they said was 5-10% or something like that. But at the end of the day, if I wanted to buy a really nice house in Florida from 4 or 5 years ago to today, there's sure as shit not just a 10% increase. It's a 50 to 60% increase. So what people do is like, if you have excess cash or excess money, you don't want to see that money go to like nothing. You don't want to see it dissolve, right? So people became aware of it, and they're like, all right, well, I'm trying to invest in rare and scarce resources, which oceanfront property in Florida is rare and scarce, right? So that's why it went up in value. So Bitcoin is rare, it's scarce, and then it kind of went into demand because of mainstream media and people talking about it. So now it's in demand, it's rare, it's scarce, and it's a system that is not corruptible. So nobody can kind of go in and say, well, I'm just going to turn it off. No, the way it works is the way that the miners protect the network, it's all anonymous. and there has to be a 51. This is like getting back into like the approval of like if I see transactions across the board, I'm not a miner, you know. But if you're a miner and everybody's watching these blocks be confirmed, there has to be over a 50% approval that that block was correct. So if there's a bad actor, let's say, that wanted to come in and say, well, I can just make up all of these transactions and say, I'll take the Bitcoin on this ledger and you guys wouldn't even know, right? Well, because the network is so big and it's gotten bigger, well, you don't even know who the miners are. You're not going to be able to get 50% or more of people to say, yeah, those transactions were correct. So nobody can really come in and take over the network at this point. So the bigger it grows, actually is the more secure, correct. So this is when you get into like the weeds of like cryptocurrency in general. Is like Bitcoin is one of the most secure networks, but it's slow. It was never built to be like the fastest, network for these, because it takes, like I said, 4 minutes to have a transaction. Whereas like Ethereum and all these other cryptocurrencies, when you get down like the weeds of it, they're more efficient, they're quicker, right? But they're not as secure. So you sometimes you give a little bit of security away, and that's like part of the cryptocurrency kind of debate is, do we want more security or do we want more efficiency? So that's why I think all of them should exist, right? Like it's a competitive marketplace. Some could be better for securing. Like I think Bitcoin is a great hedge for asset protection. So like if you just want to have an asset, because it's not really like an income generating thing, but if you want to have something that's scarce, in demand, and only going to ever exist at a certain point, yeah, that's probably a good way to put something away that is going to accumulate hopefully faster than inflation, right? So same thing in Florida. Like if I wanted to buy a house, but here's the thing. They say transferable is a big thing. So like if I want to buy a house in Florida that's rare, scarce, and in demand, okay. It's not really that easily transferable. Like I can't just bring that house with me to like Italy if I want to go to a trip, or if I want to go to Colombia, I can't really bring it with me. But like the reason why Bitcoin is very attractive is because it's scarce, highly in demand, limited resource, all this stuff, but also extremely, extremely versatile in where I can bring it. I can bring it wherever the fuck I want. It can be on a hardware wallet. I can go through customs. I can go to any country and I can exchange it anywhere, right? So that's very attractive because it's not, and it's like an international currency. It's Fugazi in the air, right? It's a digital currency. So I think that's why it was attractive and why it's going up in value. And part of, over the last like 4 years, obviously there was a lot of talk of like it going up to like $100,000. It capped out at like 66,000 and then like crashed down to 20,000. But like if you go back to like the history of Bitcoin, every 4 years, it does the same thing. It literally does the same thing. So if you look at like the history of Bitcoin, it goes up every halving because it basically like, hey, I'm going to cut the supply in half, right. And exponentially every 4 years, it gets more popular. So every 4 years, if it gets more popular and on top of it, we're cutting the supply, yeah, it's inevitable that the price is going to continue to go up. So that's kind of like the history of how it works. Is there something else that you were confused about, or? Absolutely.
So,
does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. So, I think for a more like digestible way to think about it, it's like if the United States only had $21 million, but like we know the government just prints money and money and money, and so like think about how valuable one USD would be if there was only 21 million. So I think that's how I was like in my head thinking about it, because I didn't know that it was capped at 21 million, because obviously the government just like prints money and it's like fugazi. So like I think that was, I didn't know that, but now that makes it more clear. So for somebody who just graduated college, how would you recommend that they go about their first investment? When is a good time for them to invest? And how much should they put in? Or is it like a percentage of their?
Yeah. So I am of the community where I believe that the investments that you make should be based specifically on objectives, right? Is it like, it's not gonna, like if you only have $50 to invest, right? Like I was saying before, and even if it goes up 20%, so like, well, 18% in your case, right? So 18% is a phenomenal return. Like it's a good return. But if you only have $50 and it goes up 18%, it's $59, right? So it doesn't make a ton of sense if you don't have a decent amount anymore. Like obviously when there's first mover advantage, right? But there's also a risk to it. So like if you bought Bitcoin when it was a penny, right? The exponential growth, because it wasn't valuable, obviously like you could have had like crazy gains, right? Those days are gone specifically with Bitcoin, because there's already like a cap of like, okay, it could probably, if it takes over, I think like $10 trillion of market value, that becomes like what the value of like gold is, right? So gold valuation of the entire world is about $10 trillion of the, international market. Bitcoin's around a trillion, right? So it's a 10x to get to the size of gold. Right. So a 10x, if you put in $1,000, you could make, 10,000. So it's not really like, it's not at the point where you're going to make like these exponential like gains anymore, where you're going to be like life changing for you. It's more, like I said before, it's more of an asset protection to hopefully hedge against inflation, to protect your money so you can have a rare, scarce, in-demand resource. And also people don't realize this too. You can, like Bitcoin, even though there's 21 million of the Bitcoin, it's fractionalized. So it's like, just like a dollar, you can have 100 pennies. But like with a Bitcoin, it's infinitely fractionable. You could have 0.00001 of a Bitcoin, right? And because it's on a ledger, you don't have to have like, you could buy $1 of Bitcoin, right?
You don't have to buy one whole Bitcoin at one time.
Correct. You can buy as little Bitcoin as you want. So in the sense of when should you invest, I think you should be aware of it. You should know how, like what, I think more importantly, if you don't have any money, and you're just starting out, most people will make a bet on something because they're trying to like change their life, right? Bitcoin's not going to change your life if you don't have any money. Okay, at this point, it's not going to change your life. We were talking about this before, like even if Bitcoin doubles or quadruples or something like that with my money, it's like it's not going to change my life with that money, but it's a significant amount of money that it will more than hedge against the inflation, right? So it's better than having my money do nothing. So and it's a small portion of my net worth that I was able to put this percentage in. I like to, in my case, I probably between like 10 and 15% of my investments are in cryptocurrencies. So because there's a risk, obviously I'm not going to put 100% on it. Like I just don't know enough about it that it's not my expertise. But I also, it's like, okay, well, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity if it does, do these, returns. And from the sense of like, if you are 21, 22, 23 years old right now though, the investment that will give you the highest return will always be increasing the ability to earn more income, because it's an exponential growth. Like we talked about before, a 10% increase in, $1,000, and like if I had 10% of my money every year, like for the rest of my life, I'd be for sure set. Like I have a big enough portfolio, so if I got 10% of my money for the rest of my life, I'm good, right? But if you only have $1,000, 10% of your money, like it's not going to make your life any different. You're going to make $1,000. So like that's going to take and people like they forget that a 10% return is like a good return, like and they think like, oh well, if I put $1,000 in, like that $1,000 is going to turn into $1 million. That ain't happening. Obviously, there's like compounding growth and things like that. So if you have excess cash, for sure you can put something in and continue to invest on top of each other, right? Like if I put $1,000 in a month for the rest of my life, yeah, that's going to compound, of course, right? But it will take time. So, but the best thing that you can do is obviously like make more money. Like how do you increase your income to make more than $1,000 next year, because that's a much better investment. So when you get, I always tell people, like, if you're in a point where you are still paycheck to paycheck, right? First off, understand, like, what are you paying? Like, why are you paycheck to paycheck? Like, what expenses do you have that are not needed, right? So that's one. Two, then, like, okay, well, how can I increase my earning ability? What can I do on the side? What can I, like, I didn't have many skills, but I'm like, okay, I can bartend. Like, I'm not a rocket scientist. I can bartend, so I can make some excess cash. And then when you have excess cash above your expenses, then you can start investing in other things. Like, I was investing in real estate, because real estate for me, it still had the element of, an asset, but it also had the element of, like, I could control it a bit, because you can't really control the stock market. You can't control Bitcoin. You can't control Ethereum. You can't control any of these things. But when you have a little bit of control, like, I could buy a property that was not in good shape, and then I could put sweat equity, right? I could figure out how to make the property better by something I could control, which was me. So by doing that, I could increase the value of that property and have that investment as an asset and possibly create cash flow from it, so on and so forth. So I then increase my earning capacity, because I put time, effort into something. The biggest problem is, people don't want to exchange anything for the money that they want. Investing in, like, Bitcoin and Ethereum, stock market, all that stuff is basically gambling. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have excess cash, you shouldn't be gambling, because you don't have any control over it. And if you get lucky enough, and I think it's actually, like, if you get unfortunate enough to actually, like, catch a pump and change your life, and you've never earned it. I know a lot of people that got these crypto pumps and, whatever, and just got a bunch of money thrown at them, and they don't have no idea how to handle it. They say a fool and his money is easily parted. So if you don't know how to manage your money and you haven't earned it, people will easily take that money from you and use it to things that they want, right? So I know it's, like, not what people want to hear, but, like, the part of being a man and part of growing is, like, learning how to earn money, right? Manage the money, right? And then, like, be able to maximize both. Not just like, oh, okay, let me just make more money. Or that's not even making money. We were talking about before. It's like, it's a level one business. It's like, right. You're not really increasing anyone else's value just by, like, betting on something. So you didn't really learn anything. You didn't even learn how to, like, really exchange value. You just, like, said, okay, well, I'm going to put some money over here and hope that money, it's like scratching the lottery ticket. Like, if I get a bunch of lottery tickets and I scratch them and I win some money, what did I learn?
You guessed right.
You didn't even guess. You literally just got lucky. And there's nothing wrong. Like, there's many things in my life that I've gotten extremely lucky with, but luck. What do they say? Luck is, preparation met with. I don't even know. Preparation met with action or something like that is the more lucky I get. Something like that. I don't even know. But
I think when it comes to luck, like, you have to be ready to take action. So it's like preparedness, and then the readiness to actually, like, close on whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, like, you might get lucky with the presentation of, like, a potential job or something. But are you prepared, and are you ready to actually, like, say yes immediately and then take it? So, like, I think some people are like, well, I'm unlucky, but it's like, no, like, you had opportunities, but you weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's more like,
yeah. Being prepared and being ready is a very important thing. But, like, you can't really be prepared if you just scratch the lottery ticket, right? Like, there's no lesson that you learn. If you scratch the lottery ticket and you won a bunch of money, I don't know. It's not. You haven't learned anything, so if you don't learn anything, and you have something and you've been given something, what happens?
You lose it.
No, you try and protect it. Right? So, like,
you go into, like, a scarcity mode.
You go into a scarcity mode. Like, if I don't know how to make this thing, right? Like, I just got this thing given to me, but I have no idea how to make it again. It was a complete, like imagine that, right? Like imagine you were just given something and then you're like, if I lose this, I have no idea how to get it back. That's a scary thought, right? So if I lose this thing and I don't know how to get it back, I'm going to be in complete scarcity mode. I'm going to be insecure. I'm going to feel like everybody's trying to take advantage of me. It's just not a good place to be, right? So I know a lot of people like that. Like they're super cheap, you know, they don't know, like there's like when you know that you're not confident, like the confidence comes from the ability to know that I can produce something. And like as a like we're just trying to be productive men to the society, right? And if you can be a productive man to the society, you know that you can produce something that is of value to at least another person, not just taking from the market, but also hopefully like level 3, which is not only producing value to somebody else in exchange, but also enhancing even the smallest community, largest community, something like that. So yeah, I mean, I know we got off track a little bit with Bitcoin, but is it too late to invest in Bitcoin? It depends on your situation. You know, it depends on your situation. Depends on what you're looking to do with it. You know, if you're looking to change your life completely because of Bitcoin, I don't think that's probably going to be the scenario that's going to happen. I don't see it jumping up anytime soon. Even if it is a 10x, right? Like what are you gonna, like? If you have $1 million to invest in Bitcoin and it goes up to 10 million, well, your life was already pretty good if you had $1 million, right? So if you have 10,000 and you're trying to change your life, well, even 10xing it, it's going to take a long time to 10x, and that's only $100,000. Right. You know what I mean? Like you could do a lot more things over that time period to make $100,000. Right. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, John, what else you got?
I think we were talking about. I asked you about diamond hands, just holding onto the Bitcoin forever and ever and ever, and you pretty much said. Depends, is the money going to change your life? Do you need the money? If you need the money, cash out. If you don't need the money, then if it's not going to change your life. So talk a little bit about diamond hands and how it's very subjective.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and it's funny too because people are like, oh, you know, if you ever hear somebody say like, oh, I had, you know, 5 Bitcoin in 2012 and I sold it when it was at $1,000 or whatever. You're like, oh my God, you could have had $10 million now if you would have kept those Bitcoin. I promise you, there is no possible way in your life that if you had something that you got for pennies and it jumps up like 1,000x, that you're going to be like, I'm just going to hold on to it some more. It's like, no. That's an insane, like jump in price, right? Like, unless you were in a coma for 10 years and you woke up and the Bitcoin's at $50,000 is the only way that somebody could have been like, I'm going to ride this from a penny to $50,000. No possible way, dude. Like, it's insane because it would have already been life-changing money many, many years ago. And I'm sure some people, like if they had enough Bitcoin, right, like they just literally never moved some of it. I guarantee that's probably the case. But they had enough of it where they cashed out some of it that was life-changing money that they said, okay, that's a huge amount of, like, I bought it at literally a dime. Even if it goes, like, say you bought something at a dime, say you buy 100 of them, right? So you have 100 Bitcoin for a dime, okay? It goes to $1, that literally 10x your money. Right. What do you like? How many times can be like, yeah, it's going to keep going. You know, like if you had the foresight to just do that, like good for you. In conclusion, diamond hands is a thing to tell you so they can make more money for themselves, right? If something changes your life and you've sat down and you've actually thought about like, how do you want your lifestyle to be? How do I want my life to look? And if I have that amount of money and I need to cash out, please cash out. You know, like your life is your life. Don't just be, you know, told that you have to hold on to something and then it comes crashing down and now you have to go back to working at McDonald's, right? There's a point when you have to cash out because it will change your life. So that's just kind of the conclusion. I don't think Bitcoin is going to be that type of life-changing money anymore. And I don't genuinely believe that you should be speculating all of these like little alternative coins like Dogecoin and all this other stuff either, because the likelihood of you picking right is so small. It's like scratching lottery tickets. And I just think that your time and energy and focus should be spent on something that you actually can control and increase, which is becoming more confident in who you are, more skilled, more competent, more, network ability of, socializing, being able to understand how to make money, manage money, and, maximize your earning capacity is a far better focus that you could be focusing on. So that is how Bitcoin works, and hopefully it gave you a little bit of insight on how I think about things. So talk to you soon. Peace.